Now I'm going to talk about account comparison. So using the same accounts that I have before that I've been talking about, my sister accounts, Pamela and Jennifer. What I want to do is I want to find out where they may have differences in the access they have, either directly or via their group memberships. So because they're both my sisters, presumably, they should have the same access. But what I know is I created another account for my sister, Jennifer, and she has this alternate account. So I want to find out where that alternate account has different access than my other sister, Pam. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the security index and I'm going to find that alternate account. And here it is right here. That's my sister's alternate account. And what I want to do is an account comparison. So here in the task pane, you can see account comparison. Now by default, that account is pre-filled in the source field right here. And the only thing I need to select is the target. So I'm comparing two accounts, a source and a target. So here I'm going to search for P Green, who is my other sister. There she is, Pam Green. And I'm going to go OK. Now the other options you see here, the default option is compare explicit and indirect or compare explicit only. By comparing explicit and indirect, it means I'm looking for where those accounts are explicitly ACLed on resources and where those accounts have access via their membership in groups. If I selected compare explicit, then it would just look for where those ADS accounts are directly ACLed. But we're going to stay with compare explicit and indirect. And then at the end here, you can see resource types, all and host all. The default option is to compare access with all resource types against all your managed hosts. I'm not going to change that right now. I'm going to leave it. Later on, we'll show you what you can select there. And then all you need to do then is co-compare. Now what it's doing is it's doing two access queries. It's doing one for jgillis_alt account and one for pgreen account. And then it's going to perform the comparison between those two accounts. Now, while that's running, one thing to note is that you can only run this on AD accounts and the capability is not there to run it on employees currently. So you pick your AD accounts or your AD groups and you can run your comparison. So here you go. Now we see the results of the comparison and we see that there is some differences. So in this column, we see the jgillis_alt account. And in this column, we see the Madico /pgreen account. So we're comparing Jennifer Gillis's alternate account with Pamela Green's primary account. So here in this line, you can see that Jennifer Gillis, her alternate account, has folder access to the other sister stuff folder. And she has explicit allow modifying this folder, subfolders, and files via, it says via group, but it's via her account, right? Because it's explicit on the access control list. The other folder, only Pam has access to and Jennifer does not. And Pam's access isn't direct, it's via this group that's on the access control list, the domain local Matt Sisters group. Now below you see we also have this similar access here. So the two of them also have access to the cats folder, right? They both have access, and the reason they both have access is via the domain users group, their membership in that. So that's account comparison using the default options. Now let's talk about some of the things you can change here. I already talked about the difference between compare explicit and indirect and compare explicit. We're not going to run that right now. And then resource types, if you want to, again, the default is to run them on all hosts and all types. But if you can click change, then you have a selection dialog here showing up. Right now, everything is selected, but I can uncheck specific things that I'm not interested in, right? And you can have a very targeted query. Obviously, I don't have Pam or Jen right now ACLed on anything SharePoint, but if I did, I could just choose SharePoint, right? But for now, I'm just going to leave everything the way it is. I'm not going to run this account comparison again, but there we go. And over here, two managed hosts selected. Automatically, it selects two hosts. But if I only want to run it on this very first one, I can do that. and then there's one managed host selected. And then run the query again, and it'll potentially change the results of the query. Now, I should get the same results because all I've done is I've restricted to one managed host, but that was the only host that had any access anyway. And again, it's the exact same results. Well, actually, I'll talk about this first. You can see here we have this difference type in managed host. This view allows you to group by different columns. So if you don't like the default view, you can certainly change it, ungroup, and you can drag columns from the list view into this pane here for different views. So I can go ungroup by managed host, right? And then it's a flat list there, and it'll show you the managed host there. So again, complete control over what the view looks like. Then finally, the entire view, all of the data is exportable to CSV. You click that, and then the Save As dialog will pop up. You pick where you want it to go. Automatically, the file name is listed account comparison with the two accounts, right? That's just the default naming. The other thing to note is that when that CSV export takes place, we have some hidden columns as well. Things like the UID of the associated employees for those 80 accounts. And then once you have the data exported, you're free to do whatever that data that you need to. So account simulation is the next thing that I'm going to talk about. With account simulation, we want to be able to answer the question, what happens if I change somebody's access via removing their membership in a group? Or what happens if I add somebody to membership in a group? What are they going to gain access to, right? Obviously, the very important question. So the way that we do this in DGE is you go to your security index, and again, you pick any account that you're interested in. Here, I'm interested in, again, my sister. I'm going to pick Jennifer Gillis, right? And over here in the task pane, you can see account simulation. So account simulation, here's some descriptive text. You can use account simulation to answer the following two questions. What if an account is removed from specified groups? What if an account is added to specified groups? Pretty clear, pretty common scenario, but obviously it's something that we want to be able to answer very accurately with DGE. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by simulating what happens if I add my sister to a group. So we have this button here, select groups, and I'm going to browse groups, and I'm going to see what happens if I add my sister to the global finance group. So check names. There it is here, global finance, and I'm going to select the first one. Okay. Now I can add multiple groups here. In this case, I'm just going to add one, but if I wanted to simulate the effect of adding my sister Jennifer into multiple groups, I could do that as well. Just click Browse Groups again. Here, I'm just going to simulate this one group addition and go Simulate. So again, while this is happening, it's doing an access request on where my sister currently has access against what she could get access to via the membership in that group. And there's the results. So by adding Jay Gillis to the global finance group, all of a sudden she is going to gain access to quite a few important things. So it's broken down my managed hosts. You can see I have this MMDIM 702 machine. It's a Windows server, and also my NetApp filer, my MMNA1 machine. On MMDIM 702, you can see that she is going to get explicit allow, read, and execute on this folder, subfolders, and files via the domain local finance group. Right? So she will be getting access not through her membership directly in the global finance group, but the global finance group happens to be nested within another group, and that's the group that is ACL directly on that resource. So again, DGE is very comprehensive when it looks for what will be the impact of adding somebody to a group, right? So here you can see Jennifer is going to get access to the finance folder. It says shares, but it's a folder, and that's where she's going to get access directly. And then on the NetApp filer, she's going to get access to three resources: this home, because the domain local finance group is ACL directly on that folder or on that share. And then underneath that, there's another share called sensitive data that the global finance group directly has access. She's going to get access to that. And then this new volume here as well. For some reason, Global Finance also happens to be ACL directly on new volume. So Jennifer is going to get access to that as well. So here we go. So adding somebody to a group, you can see the results, the implications of doing such a task. So the opposite of that would be, what is the impact of removing my sister from a group, right? So that's what those two options are: add to group or remove to group. Now I'm going to choose remove from group. Select groups. Now here you have to know which group you want to know the impact of. It's not going to display all the groups. So I'm going to look for the sisters group, the domain local sisters group. Actually, she is in the global. So that's the group that I'm interested in. Now I go OK. So now we are going to find out the impact of removing my sister from the global Matt sisters group. She's no longer my sister. Let's see what happens here. And again, it's going to run those account access queries. The DGE server is actually talking to the DGE agents that are responsible for holding those security databases, the full information about the access. And here you go. So the results, the impact of removing my sister from that global sisters group is she is going to have rights revoked from this machine. She is going to lose her access to sister stuff. And because of this particular group that happens to be ACL directly on that resource, the global group that she's a member of is nested in that group. And because we're removing her from that, she's going to lose her access. So again, we have the options here. You can change host types. You can change resource types as well. By default, we show all resource types and all hosts. So if you want to change that, you click change. Right? And then you can select something else. You can select specific resource types only on SharePoint or only files, folders, and shares on Windows servers. And you can drill down into specific managed host types. You can select only one or more. And then, of course, everything is exportable via CSV as well. And we have some hidden columns as well that may also appear in the exportable CSV. And then once you have the CSV, you can use that data however you like.